In this video, I'm going to show you several different ways to get really wide guitar tracks in your mixes and your productions, even if you're only working with just one guitar take. Let's check it out. Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlight Studio, and once the weather turned cold up here in the Northwest, it's been a great time to catch up on recording, and we've been doing a ton of it, a lot of guitar lately, so we got some great gear and guitars to work with. And I faced this situation a lot, especially about midway through the mix process, where you've got some great guitar takes and you just love them, but that one perfect guitar take, you realize it'd be great if you actually could get it in stereo. And you only have one take to work with. So I'm going to show you several different methods that you can take that one guitar take and turn it into a real stereo recording, left and right. Bigger sound, much fuller overall sound in your productions and mixes, but still just working with that one guitar take. And then we'll work into a couple of other ideas and techniques to get an even bigger sound than that. Let's check it out. With so many different kinds of guitar recording techniques and guitarists constantly striving for the perfect tone, one of the most challenging things, especially if we're recording that guitar sound through an amplifier, is to change it after the fact, after the recording's already been done, because the recording sound itself has largely already been printed. If you're recording straight into your audio interface, there are a mind-numbing array of guitar synths out there for you to choose from Guitar Rig to Amplitube, and even Steinberg's own VST amp rack, which has a ton of different configurations, amplifier and cabinet combinations, tons of effects, and it sounds great. However, if you're mixing the tracks after the fact, and it's been recorded through an actual amplifier, your choices are a lot more limited if you want to change the configuration. In a perfect world, we'd start every recording going from the output of our guitar straight into a great quality direct box. And then the other side of the link or through output simply goes to our amplifier. The XLR output on the back of the DI box goes straight into our audio interface, which allows us to reamp later in software or in hardware, and this gives us the most amount of flexibility. But as we all know, especially when recording instruments and amplifiers, a perfect world doesn't happen very often. And case in point is our first example here. This is a mix in progress where the original guitar player actually liked the scratch track recording better than any of the subsequent takes, which leaves us only the one take to work with, which was recorded straight off the amplifier. It sounds like this. The part is groove-driven and was done during the original demo session, and the later tracking sessions couldn't replicate the exact tone and feel of the part. In addition, it's right on top of the lead vocal and all the center instruments, so there's not a lot we can do with it unless we move it out of the way and clear some space for those additional parts. So I'm going to show you two different methods to solve this problem. The method that you choose is going to have more to do with where you think your song is going to end up being played, as they both have advantages and disadvantages. The first example has the best stereo separation, but less mono compatibility. So we're going to take that first original guitar track and we're going to duplicate it. We'll leave the default track title as it is so we can tell these two apart. And we're going to come up to the track settings window. And under the track settings display, we'll see all the different variations for track control. We have the fader value, we have the pan value, and then directly under that, we have a delay track amount. We can actually delay the track forward or backwards by a specific amount of milliseconds. This is important because this allows us to change its position on the timeline relative to the duplicated track. We're going to delay our original audio track about 12 milliseconds in relationship to the duplicated track, and then we're going to take that result on the fader and we're going to pan it hard left. On the duplicated track, we're going to leave that one in its default 0 delayed position, meaning we're not going to move it forward or backwards, and we're going to come down to the fader and we're going to pan this hard right. When we play back the two tracks in their new pan positions, we get this.
Reminds you of Star Wars. Lightning
That's the amazing Shaene Marie Pascal, a great Northwest artist. I'll leave that info in the links below. So for a mix at this stage, we would have already done all of the timing edits on the original guitar track before we duplicated it, but you get the general idea. This creates a lot of texture and a lot of width, makes room for the kick and the snare as well as the vocal, and gives us a lot more mix options down the road when it comes to our stereo field. However, anytime we use an exact duplicate of another clip inside of our project, we need to be aware of possible phase issues. So over here on our console view, we are going to check for mono compatibility so that our tracks panned hard left and right don't get thin and hollow sounding when our project is collapsed into mono, like many of our modern day mobile devices still actually do. And the guitars sound great, they're nice and wide, and they're completely out of the center image altogether. When we engage this, it collapses it all to mono. So as you can hear, the left and right separation of the guitar sounds great in stereo, and it's completely out of the center image altogether, but we do lose some of its punch when it's collapsed to mono due to phase issues. And whether or not you can live with those mono compatibility considerations has more to do with what media you think your songs will end up getting played on. Which brings us to our second method of creating a stereo image from a mono track. This is similar to the same technique that some plugin manufacturers use to achieve stereo width, but it gives you far more precise control over the overall effect in your track. In this next example, method 2 involves much the same process, except we're going to duplicate our track twice instead of once. So we have our original guitar part that's been mic'd with an amplifier. All right, so we're going to take that track and we're going to duplicate this track twice. And we'll call this dupe 1, and then we'll duplicate it again. And then this will be dupe 2. And we're also going to jump over to the console view, and we're going to take those duplicated tracks and we're going to create a separate bus to control them with independently. This way we can control the volume of the tracks relative to the original track. This gives us complete independent volume control over the two duplicated tracks, which is important because they need to be identical settings on each track for this to work. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the second duplicated track and we're going to invert the phase of this track by itself. So this is regular phase, this phase is inverted, and our normal guitar track is also regular phase. So we're going to take our first duplicated track and we're going to pan that hard left. We're going to take the second duplicated track, pan it hard right, and then we're going to mute our original amplifier track, and we end up with this. Then we're going to go to our original mic'd amplifier track, and we're going to start to bring it up slowly, but we need to do one thing to the track first before we do that. We need to come up to the guitar track's control, and we're going to delay this track by about 12 milliseconds. And the reason it's going to be 12 is because that's not really enough to affect the timing of the overall track, but it's enough to separate it from the out-of-phased tracks. So listen to what happens as we raise the signal. So as you can hear, we have a strong stereo image. It's not as completely stereo separated as our first method, but the difference here is this method will be totally mono-compatible. And the reason why is our two duplicated tracks are totally out of phase with one another. And when those tracks are collapsed to mono, they cancel each other out completely. And you can hear this more clearly if we isolate the guitar and then collapse it to mono. As you can hear, the two duplicated guitar tracks cancel one another out and disappear from the mix entirely. And the only one that's left playing when they cancel each other out is our original mic'd guitar track. So as you can hear, this method is extremely effective at creating a stereo guitar sound from a single mono guitar track. And the entire mix survives completely when it's collapsed to mono, and the guitars are just as punchy and just as detailed and lifelike as they are in stereo. The only caveat to this method is that it doesn't completely remove the center image sound like the first method does, but this is far more mono compatible if you expect a lot of your music to be played predominantly back on older mobile devices that still summit to mono. You might want to consider this method. This technique can also work really well on acoustic guitars, especially if you need matching left and right bed tracks for your song to get out of the way of the lead vocal or whatever, but the player's not really strong enough to match those takes exactly. And the more stylized the take is, the harder that is to do. So this is a great kind of lifesaver when you really need left and right bed tracks, but you only have one take that's really good enough to work with. In this next example, we're going to be using a combination of techniques, and much like the first example, we have a single guitar part. In this case, it's an acoustic part that was mic'd, and we only have the one track to work with. The original performer couldn't match the track exactly to give us two left and right bed tracks, as it's a really funky and groove-oriented part. This is a guitar-oriented rock song with kind of a classic rock vibe. Sounds like this. That is, of course, some killer lead guitar work from the amazing Mr. Dennis Morris. He's the guitar player for a band called Redbone. You might have heard of some of their stuff on the first Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack some years ago. So we need to clear out the guitar from the center and make room for some of these lead instruments and put it left and right. So we're going to do the same thing we did in the last example. We're going to duplicate our track first. We've already done all of our editing on the acoustic guitar track, so that's out of the way. And we're also going to come up to our original track, and we're going to delay its playback by about 12 milliseconds like we did in the previous example, compared to the duplicated track. And then we're going to come down to the fader value, and again, on our original track, we're going to pan that hard left. On our duplicated track, we're going to pan this hard right. Now, we could delay the track even more than this. So if we solo these two tracks at the moment, we've got these two. And that's given us a really nice separation here. You can even get a bit more separation, but eventually you'll introduce a perceivable echo, and that'll begin to affect the timing of the original performance. So the amount that you delay the track with is a dance between separation width and how much you're actually affecting the timing of the track itself. Now it's time to check our mono compatibility. So on our two duplicated tracks here, we're going to add an additional EQ to further separate the sound from each other. And on the first track, this is our original track, we're going to use Steinberg's frequency EQ. And we're going to come up here and we're going to load a preset that basically just gives us a little bit of definition different from the other side. So in this particular case, this is just going to bump a couple of the frequencies a little bit below 100 hertz and a little bit above 500 hertz. And on the other side, we're going to use the same EQ, Steinberg's frequency. We're going to bring this over here. But on this EQ, we're going to add a high-pass filter, and we're going to change the shape of the curve dramatically. And this is going to be an extreme low cut below about 100 hertz, and it's going to bump a couple of other frequencies in the high mids and high area. And these EQs are dramatically different from one another on purpose. And the reason why is this. The more difference there is between the left and the right signal, the less it's going to cancel itself out when the mixes collapse to mono. So this method is a dance between stereo separation and how much mono compatibility you're willing to live without. The bigger the difference between the left and right EQ settings, the more mono compatibility you'll have, but you begin to dramatically affect the sound of the acoustic guitar. And when we collapse the entire thing to mono, we have this. This technique strikes a nice balance between stereo separation and mono compatibility and can be used on a wide variety of different kinds of sounds. Really, you can use this for just about any kind of sound, vocals, guitar, a variety of different things that you need to turn into a stereo sound or track. So there's a couple different techniques that you can use to get really wide guitar tone in your own productions and mixes without changing the original performance of the guitar track to begin with. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today, you guys. If you learned something or if this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It really does help keep the channel going, and it helps me make more videos like this. Stay safe, be creative, add something creative to the world. It could really use it. I'll catch you guys in the next video.